Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us to discuss the flexible capacity requirements for 2021 through 2023. My name is Isabella Nicosia, representing ISO Stakeholder Affairs, and I'll be facilitating the webinar today. I'm also joined by a few other ISO representatives, so I'll have them introduce themselves starting to my left.
Abdul Muhammad Ali from Operations.
Amber Motley, Forecasting.
Jessica Tahiri, Forecasting.
Jordan Pinu from Legal.
Clyde Luton, Renewables.
Today's call is being recorded, and the video file will be available on the Stakeholder Process webpage for a limited time. The recording is for informational and convenience purposes only, and any related transcription should not be reprinted without the ISO's permission. The presentation we will be going over today is also available on the Stakeholder Process webpage. We will be taking questions throughout the call today, and you can enter the question queue at any time by pressing #2 on your telephone keypad. Just a reminder to everyone on the line to please start by introducing yourself before asking your question. So the purpose of today's call is to discuss the criteria, methodology, and assumptions used in calculating the monthly flexible capacity requirement, calculate requirements for all LRAs within the ISO footprint for RA compliance years 2021 and advisory flexible capacity requirements for compliance years 2022 and 2023. And then we'll also discuss the input assumptions and methodology of the annual CUSO's availability assessment hour. So the agenda for today's call, we'll go over some background and then dive into the process review. So cover expected build-out from all LSEs, both CPUC jurisdictional and non-jurisdictional, load, wind, and solar profiles, and then we'll go over the calculations for 3-hour net load ramps, cover expected monthly maximum contingency reserve requirements, and then also the calculations for monthly flexible capacity requirements. And then lastly, we'll go over some next steps. So with that, I will hand it over to Clyde, and we'll dive into the material.
Thank you, Isabella. So good afternoon. So each year, the California ISO calculates the monthly flexible capacity needs, and in this case, we're looking at 2021, what it is we need in terms of flexibility, and the intent here is for the load serving entity or the scheduling coordinator for each load serving entity to make a year ahead and a month ahead showing of the flexible capacity needs. So intent is we want to ensure that all those 7 entities contract for adequate capacity to meet the monthly flexible capacity needs. Year ahead showing is 90% of the next year's monthly needs. Month ahead is we need to make sure we can cover the flexible capacity needs for that month plus the contingency reserve capacity and plus planning reserve margin for each month. All resources participating in the ISO's market under an RA contract, they need to have a must-have or must-have obligation, and then they are required to submit economic bids in the ISO's real-time market, consistent with whichever bucket it is that they qualify for flexible capacity needs. Next slide. So the ISO flexible capacity assessment is based on the current load serving entities expected build-out. So we use the most current data available to us. So looking at the flexible capacity needs for 2021, we look at 2019 actual data. So in this case, we're looking at load, wind, and solar 1-minute data, for the whole year to calculate the flexible capacity needs. We take that data, we generate net load profiles, and in this case, we calculate 21 through 23. So we look at the load profiles, the solar profiles, wind profiles. The net load is load minus wind minus solar, and we use that net load to calculate flexible capacity needs. This year, we also look at the impacts of curtailments when running flexible capacity requirements. We could get into that a little more in a few minutes. Next slide, please. So to start off, in terms of the load, we start off developing the load profiles based on the CEC 1 and 2 IPA forecast. This blue link takes you to the CEC's hourly IPA 1 and 2 load forecast. And what we do here is a few things. One, slide 7, please. So on slide 7, we really end up with column S, which is the managed net load. And when you go to that link, it has columns A through S. And column S is the one that we use. What column S is the base net load minus the, what's AAE? I always forget that.
Additional achievable energy efficiency.
So that's column Q. So base net load minus the AAEE is how you come up with the managed net load. The base net load is comprised of, baseline consumption, and that's column N. You subtract the behind-the-meter PV, behind-the-meter storage for residential customers, and behind-the-meter storage for non-residential customers. And then the baseline consumption, again, that's broken down into unadjusted consumption, and then pumping and climate change, light-duty electric vehicles. I think that's MD is middleweight, medium. And then time of use impact, other adjustments. Anyway, the end product is column S is what we're going to be using for the flexible capacity load analysis. Next slide, please. So we went over this last year. What we started doing is taking the hourly load profiles that the CEC sent to us, and we convert that into minute-to-minute profiles. So we look at it. In this case, let's assume this is 2020. We look at the 2018 actual 1 minute. So for this year, we're going to be looking at 2021 and the 2019 actual 1 minute. So first thing we do is we convert the minute-by-minute actual data into hourly profiles, and that's step 1. So when you look at step 1, we take the CEC forecast, which is blue. Green is the the hourly forecast of the actual 1 minute data, and then the purple line there is the difference between the two curves. Now, when you blow up the purple curve, or when you change the scale, you can see how it looks, right? So each hour for this sample day, and then this smoothing routine that we run would create this minute-by-minute profiles that looks smooth, so you can compare that to 2018. So when you take this smoothing effect for the 2020 data, you minus that 2018 actual, you'd end up with X value for every minute, and that X value now, in this case, is going to be added back to the 2018 1-minute profile to generate, in step 3, the CEC 1-minute profile, which is based on that hourly profiles that we get from the CEC. So I'd like to pause there. Well, one more slide, then we pause. So when you go to slide 9 is just a mathematical representation of what was done in slide 8. So you look at the year that you're forecasting for minus the actual for the preceding year, and that X value is a minute-by-minute profile that you add to each data point from the actual to generate a minute-by-minute profile for the year that you study. So I'd like to pause here for a few minutes to see if there are any questions out there as to how we generate the load profile.
Will, are there any questions in the queue?
There are currently no questions in the queue.
Okay, thanks.
So on slide 10, we look at the wind growth assumption. And here we do something similar. We look at the most current year, and in this case, again, looking at 2021, we look at every minute of 2019 in terms of wind profiles. And obviously, you have wind plants coming in throughout the year. So that second bullet there is really to clarify that we do include the project. So assume you have a project coming in May, we do include that back in January through April of the next year so that we would not miss any actual capacity. So when you look at the third bullet, again, this is looking at the expected capacity that's coming in each month. And now we know what the expected, or not the expected, the actual capacity was for the previous year. So in this case, when you're looking at simulating a 2020 1-minute wind profile, you're looking at the 2019 actual 1-minute data. We have this hourly scaling factor where you look at 2020, the expected capacity of wind that's coming in, and then the 2019 actual capacity. In this way, we generate the wind profile. We think by doing it this way, maintains the correlation between load and wind, load and solar, and wind and solar. So on slide 11, we do something similar, creating minute-by-minute profiles for the expected solar that's coming in. So when you look at, in this case, 2020 or 2021, we take the actual 1-minute data for 2019. We know what the capacity each month was in 2019. We know what the expected capacity coming in for each month in 2020, 21, 22, 23. We use that hourly scaling factor to generate minute-by-minute profiles for 20, 21, 22, in this case, 23. So typically what we do, in this case, we're looking at the flexible capacity needs for 2021. We also do 2 years out into the future just as advisory. We'd update those next year for 22, 23, and then we include 24. So net load, I know this question came up in the past. Why net load? Well, net load is a NERC-accepted term, looking at flexible capacity, and what it is really is the aggregated customer demand subtracting the wind and solar profiles. What we found out is net load is more variable than load itself, sometimes wind and solar. So we would need to make sure that we could, well, we do have flexible capacity to cover the variability that we see in the net profile. Back 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago, we used to dispatch resources to meet load. As more and more renewables come in, we really dispatch flexible capacity, or not flexible capacity, but generation to meet net load, because we treat load and wind must stay. So as I said, we dispatch generation to meet net load. As I said, net load varies quite a bit. The flexible capacity is really to make sure that you can meet intra-hour flexible capacity needs, the maximum 3-hour flexible capacity needs that we calculate on a monthly basis. And then one more slide before we pause. The question is slide 13, this one here. This shows you the net loads, which is, again, load minus wind minus solar. You can see how it varies from one day to the next. This is looking at consecutive days. The intent here is to look at, if it's January, look at all 31 days in January, or in this case, March. And then we look at for the maximum 3-hour ramp, looking at all days again. And then we take that maximum 3-hour ramp, look at the peak demand for that month, calculate the contingency reserve requirement to calculate the flexible capacity need. So the first step here is to calculate the 3-hour ramp, and then the second step is to calculate the flexible capacity need. So I'm going to pause right here for a few minutes, see if we have any questions on how we calculate the net load variability.
Are there any questions in the queue, Will?
we actually have one question in the queue.
Okay.
Hi, Clyde. Steve Greenleaf, CES. I wasn't sure if you were going to go back and talk about how you were going to factor in curtailments. I didn't see a specific slide on that. So if you don't mind, can you talk? That it appears that may be something new for this year. I just wanted to get a little more detail on that.
So what we're going to do, Steve, is we're going to show two sets of 3-hour ramp requirements, the maximum 3-hour ramps. One, we need to vet this again, internally, what it is we're going to assume as curtailments, right? So we do the first run looking at the maximum flexible capacity needs with no curtailment, and then the second one is we'll assume some curtailment level. Now, the way you could also view this is looking at the minimum net load on the system, which kind of way, in a way, is looking at curtailment. So we want to go back and evaluate what's the minimum net load we can physically or reliably operate with. We're going to use that as the flexible capacity curtailment, not flexible capacity, renewables curtailment. Sorry.
Okay, and that'll be kind of detailed in the report when you publish.
Yeah, we're going a little more detail on that, but we still want to talk about this internally here and come to an agreement. We plan on showing, as I said, two sets of requirements, one with and without curtailment.
Okay, and as far as the assumptions with respect to curtailment, are you going to go back and look at system-level curtailments, or because my recollection is most of the curtailment year over year seems to be at a local level on an economic basis. So, or have you not yet determined how you're going to look at that? Assume curtailment levels.
So, Steve, looking out, we look at a system-level curtailment, and as I said, we're going to have to tie that back to minimum net load, right? So we're going to go back and work with the operating folks and the planning folks to figure out what that minimum net load is that we think we can get a reliable commitment to operate and meet, things like frequency response, contingency reserve, and other things. So we're going to explain that in detail when we have the next stakeholder call.
All right, thanks. And you can confirm that this is something new for this year?
Well, in prior years, the net load was high enough, which it was not a worry. But the net load, if you have more and more rooftop PV comes on, it impacts that net load. And if the net load drops too low, then you may or may not get a reliable solution. You could get an economic solution, but it may not be reliable.
We did, this is Amber from the ISO. We did mention it if you read the paper that was released last year for the FLEX study. We did mention and show a couple graphs on curtailment within that paper as well. So we just want to expand on it, but we'll put more information within the paper as well as our draft presentation on the exact analysis that was run and the assumptions that were taken into consideration and if that would be used for any sort of adoption. But at this time, it's too preliminary for us to go into that detail during this call.
Okay. All right. That's helpful. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions in the queue?
There are no further questions at this time.
Okay, it looks like we did get one over the chat. It says, what interpolation method you use?
What?
Interpolation method.
Oh, Jessica, it's a package that we use in-house. I don't know what program that is.
We can document more information on a specific package if that's needed, but it is an R package within the language R that's used to do the interpolation from the hourly to minute. And I don't remember the package name right off the top of my head, but if that's something that you need, to submit that as a question and we can get back to you.
So slide 14. Slide 14 is looking back from 2016 to 2019, the actual 3-hour ramps that we saw each month. And you can see the trend. Typically, it's increasing over the years. Way back in 2016, for instance, in January, it was 9,600 roughly megawatts, and then in 2019, it's 15,639. So we have seen a steady increase in the flexible capacity needs. Initially, we thought this was a non-summer month scenario or a challenge, but it looks as though eventually this is going to be, showing up all 12 months. Obviously, the flexible capacity needs will be increasing. So I'll pause here for a couple of minutes to see if anyone has any questions on this slide.
All right, looks like we've just had one question come in.
Hi, Clyde.
So let me just clarify one thing on this. This plot here shows, if we had curtailment, it's going to be reflected in these 3-hour ramps. So, yes.
Yeah, hi, Clyde. Brian Baker with Middle River Power. On your slide 14, yeah, good afternoon. Slide 14, those are minute to minute, those are minute granularity numbers?
Yeah, so what we do that's maybe coming up in the next slide. We look at a 180 minutes moving window, and we pick the maximum that we see across that month.
Okay, thank you.
All right, there are no more questions in the phone line queue at this time.
Okay, so slide 15. So most of you pretty aware that contingency reserve is a NERC requirement. This is a real serious requirement that NERC imposes on all balancing authorities in North America. And our concern is during this 3-hour round, if we do have a contingency, we have 15 minutes to recover from that contingency. And they're pretty strict on this. 15 minutes and 4 seconds is fail. And the failure here could come with up to, in the West that is, up to $1 million in fine. And in the West, they make you carry reserves for an additional 3 months. So it's pretty costly if you fail one of these. So this is the primary reason why we want to make sure we have enough contingency reserve available. So during that 3-hour ramp, if we lose a big unit, we could recover back in 15 minutes. So in other words, you need to meet the ramp plus your contingency or recover from that contingency. So one of the things NERC clarified a couple of years back is contingency reserve. Now contingency reserve can only be used for contingency. So ramping events, let's say we short on a ramp, we cannot use contingency reserve to recover or to help meet that ramping needs. So this is, again, the reason why you need to make sure you have enough flexibility to meet that ramp plus the contingency reserve. Slide 16 is showing you how we calculate the flexible capacity needs. So the flexible capacity needs pretty simple. We look at the maximum 2-hour ramp each month. Now we take the maximum of the most severe single contingency 3.5% of the expected peak load for that month. And then we had an uphill on that we never used, so we do not intend on using that for 2021 timeframe. Everything is explained in that, but again, the first calculation we do is the maximum 3-hour route. Then, in our case, our load contingency reserve almost all the time is trumped by the load or the expected peak load for that month. So, again, hence, we take that peak load on 3.5%. I'll pause here for a couple of minutes to see if anyone has a question on how we calculate flexible capacity needs.
Is there any questions in the queue?
There are no questions at this time.
All right. So looking at slide 17. Slide 17 is just, we decided to put this slide in here to show essentially what we do. So like in 2017, when we calculated the flexible capacity needs for 2018 and the advisory for 2019, we also do calculate the flexible capacity needs for 2017 because we use that to build the subsequent years, right? So in 2017, we used the actual 1 minute data for that we got in 2016, and then we generated, in this case, for 2018, that was the flexible capacity needs for 2018. And we just decided to show the actual flexible capacity needs for 2017. You can see in some months, during the summer months, it was kind of close. And December, the needs were, from 12,981, we had forecasted 14,567. And when you look at slide 18, so slide 18, we showed the actual for 2018. So in December, we were not that far off, 14.5 as opposed to almost 14.1. So again, you're trying to do this forecast, I would say, 2 hours ahead, looking at, your actual data, and then we're trying to predict what's coming in on the system. And again, you can see the forecast and then the actuals. They're pretty close, within a few hundred megawatts. And again, that's, to me, that's pretty close when you're looking at trying to figure out what the flexible capacity needs on the system. And you have so many variables, that you've got to think of. Another big variable here that we kind of guesstimate here, or the CC guesstimate, is behind the meter rooftop PV. But again, remember that's hourly, and you're trying to calculate flexible capacity needs on hourly basis or minute-by-minute basis to make sure that you have enough flexibility to meet your demand. I'll pause here for a couple of minutes to see if there are any questions on slide 18 and 17.
Just a reminder, you can enter the question queue by pressing #2. So, Will, are there any questions in the queue?
There's still no questions.
Good. So, slide 19. What it is we need to do this analysis? Well, we mentioned the CCI forecast that we already got. The load serving entities, we sent our survey out. We collected that back in January 15th. We got all of it. We got all the data we needed. We are in the process of looking through that data set before we start the analysis. And so when we create the profiles, we look at one of the things we ask is what's coming in on the system. So in this case, like solar thermal, solar PV tracking, non-tracking. We also ask behind the meter rooftop PV that's coming in. This year was the first time we decided to ask for hybrid resources, because we have a lot of hybrid resources in the queue. What variable energy resources are on the contract. We also ask for out-of-state renewables. one of the things, we need to know is the out-of-state renewables, are they coming into the ISO fixed capacity, or are they coming in as dynamic schedules? If they come in as dynamic schedules, we include that in the internal wind and solar calculation to calculate the flexible capacity needs, only because when renewables that's out of state comes into the ISO, we see the variability on a 4-second basis. We need to make sure we have flexibility to meet all dynamically imported renewables. So we already collected the data we need from all load-serving entities. As I said, we are in the process of going through that data set. We should be done pretty soon with that. Slide 20. That's that on slide 20 here to see if anyone has any questions on the assumptions and the methodology that we use to calculate the 3-hour ramp on the flexible capacity needs.
Are there any questions in the queue?
No questions in the queue.
Okay.
All right. So with that, I'll pass this back to Jessica. Jessica?
Good afternoon. I will quickly discuss our review of the availability assessment hours calculations that we do. Next slide, please. So we use the CEC IPER forecast described in previous slides, so the 2019 actual hourly data, and then the 2020 to 2023 hourly average load forecast from the CEC by hour by month. And we calculate the top 5% of load hours within each month using an hourly load distribution and find the hours where the peak is most frequent to develop our availability assessment hours that we send out. This is the same methodology that we've used in previous years, so there are no changes from previous years that we've done this calculation. So wrapping up, just quickly going over some of the timeline information that's already occurred. We had market notices go out for the data that we collected that Clyde had mentioned in December and January. And the CEC IPER forecast was published January 16th, 2020, and the LSE survey data was due on January 15th of this past year. The next slide, please. And the next steps of this process, we have our call today discussing the methodology. The comments for this call are due on February 11th, 2020. We'll publish our preliminary flexible capacity and AAH requirements for 2021 through 2023 in early April, and the call that we will have to discuss that will be on March 31st, 2020. And then the comments for that call for the preliminary requirements will be due on April 14th. And then we will issue our final flexible capacity and AAH requirements for 2021, and the projected requirements for 2022 and 2023 by May 1st. No.
This is Amber. The only thing I will mention is at the bottom right now, we already have on the calendar that the draft stakeholder presentation is going to be on March 31st, and then the requirements due on April 14th and the final going out by May 1st. Because we did receive the CEC IPER forecast a few weeks late, we're going to try to push for this, but you could see that these timelines move 2 weeks into the future depending on how the process is going. I want to make sure that we have time to thoroughly review things before the draft goes out, so we don't have to make many changes between the draft and the final that are going out. So we may adjust the schedule a couple weeks based off that.
Are there any questions before we wrap up?
There's one question in the queue.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon. This is Tim Jerry from Metropolitan Water District. I have a question for you. When you put out the May 1st, is that the actual needs assessment report for 2021? Is that the document we're talking about there?
There'll be 2 documents that you guys will be able to see. So the first documents that come out are the draft then that's the one that is expected to come out towards the end of March, beginning of April time period, and then stakeholders will have an opportunity to comment on that draft assessment. So when that comes out, you'll see a paper, a presentation, as well as the individual elections by entity, and then you can comment on that. And then in May, the one that comes out in May is the final determination based off the comments and everything that was done in the draft.
And it's the final one in May in the draft that you just indicated. Is it actually going to have the methodology around allocating the flex capacity needs to LRAs?
Yes.
Okay, so the first bite at that?
And the methodology is not expected to change between the last 2 years, so you can look at last year's draft presentation if you want more details on the methodology in that light too.
Do you anticipate this year for 2021 that there will be any change to the allocation methodology?
Right now, no.
Okay, thank you.
All right, looks like we have one more in the queue.
Hi, this is Simone Burnett from the CPC. Sorry to go back, but how are you going to incorporate the hybrid and co-located resources?
At this time, we're just collecting the data to see how many resources and how many megawatts are within that category, and we would go from there based on the quantity that's in there. So we don't have an incorporation methodology right now. We really just want to get a feel for how many megawatts are going to be sitting in that space.
Okay, thanks.
All right, with that, we have no further questions on the line.
Okay. That concludes today's call. Just a reminder to please submit comments on the assumptions to initiativecomments@CAISO.com by February 11th. Thank you all for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day.
That concludes our conference. Thank you for using AT&T Event Conferencing Enhanced. You may now disconnect.